Welcome back to another episode of Excuse My Grandma. It's Kim and my co-host.
Grandma Gail.
The last episode of 2021.
Unbelievable, Kim. I can't believe we've come this far.
Did you think we would be doing it for a year?
No, I really didn't.
You didn't sign on to this?
Well, it's not that I didn't sign on. I thought for sure Netflix was going to pick us up and we were going to get a series. I can only say that my followers are very dedicated.
How many times do you think the phone rang during our recordings in 2021?
Well, they seem to always ring when we're just in the middle of a thought.
No one calls us otherwise.
Right. It's usually a code call, or what do you call those phony callers that are looking to sell me insurance or
you
something.
have a landline, so that's the problem. It just is always ringing and interrupting. You can't turn that on silent.
That's a leftover from the old days, so I need a landline. Okay, so what were we talking about? Not only are the followers dedicated, Kim, but you got me hooked on this TikTok, and we're having a lot of fun with it, and that seems to be really catching on. We have a lot of viewers on that, and that's been an experience because really, for a person of my age, I would never normally go to TikTok, so that's been a broadening of ideas for me as well. So I think that's been fun.
Mm-hmm. And we've just had so much feedback on there as well, and it's all positive, and I think that's really special because a lot of people on social media don't have that kind of response.
That is true, and we're very happy for our fans, and keep it coming because we need more and more and more, and maybe Netflix will pick us up.
That's true. Stay positive. Let's go back to the beginning because it's both the end of the year but also 1 year since we started the Excuse My Grandma podcast. So where were we 1 year ago?
Well, I think you still had a full-time job.
I did.
You were juggling computers and green lights in your room and carrying on.
Is that what you thought I did for a living? Juggle computers and
you
green
were juggling
lights?
Computers. You were going back and forth, and you were doing a really good job.
For those who don't know, I worked in television journalism.
But it was frustrating because they were no longer working in an office, and you really were stuck in a room by yourself working, and that's when you came up with the idea.
Yeah, and I was dealing with, some personal injuries and things like this. And as we were starting this podcast while I was working, I realized that we really had something good. We were getting great response, and that I was going to give 100% to this. At first, we started the podcast, for those who don't know, because I moved in with you during the pandemic. The pandemic is still happening, but I guess the first round of it. And you wanted to fix the issues I had in my dating life, which you quickly realized, I believe, when I moved in.
They were not fixable.
Not fixable?
They weren't fixable. They were out of control.
Yeah, and dating in 2022 is not that different from dating in the 50s and 60s, is what we kind of figured it out. Like, what we want in our personal relationships have not changed that much. We all want a fulfilling love life, but how we go about it is a lot different. I think our expectations are a lot different.
Well, our expectations are different, and the tools that we get there with are different. I mean, we certainly didn't have 24/7 on a telephone, and we didn't have texting. So that's really the major difference in dating today, I think. And also, women are out there, men are out there. Everybody's doing their own thing, and both are initiating dates. It's not just the man calling the woman now; it's the woman calling the man, which is probably pretty good.
Let's go back into our episode log and see some of the moments that we had, both together and with guests. Our first episode was Excuse My Grandma's knowledge of dating apps, ghosting, and sex before marriage. So that was really our introduction to ourselves, our relationship history, our dynamic, and introducing some of the modern terms of today.
Yeah, and I think we progressed from there. We sort of ended up realizing that a lot of our thoughts about dating were similar, and that we needed to get advice and information from outside guests, which really became the focal point of this past year. We've gotten fabulous feedback from our audience on the guests we've had on the show.
Right.
And I think we'll have to discuss some of your favorites and maybe my favorites.
Our first guest ever was Bo Deedle, who was a private investigator for Jordan Belfort, and he was an NYPD detective for a while. That was our first one.
And he was interesting because he said, investigate your dates.
Mhm.
He's not in love with the apps. He says they could make phony information go on those apps, and then you could get bedazzled by someone who's maybe not what he says he is online. So that was interesting, and it gave you food for thought. So, that was one of the fun ones we had.
Yep. And then we continued to do episodes together talking about birthday texts, sleepovers, the friend zone, girl code. Okay, then we had Jill Kargman of Odd Mom Out.
And she's always a treat, and
Mhm.
she was wonderful, and she explained how she met her husband, which is always a laugh.
Yes.
And a lot of these things were wonderful for the two of us because we got to meet people
Right.
and really talk to them on a personal level as well as on a professional level now. And we've made some really great friends. One of the ones I loved was the comedian.
Jared Freed.
Jared Freed. I mean, he
Mhm.
was one of my
He was just
all-time
on Jimmy
favorites.
Fallon, actually.
Yeah, I think he was great. I loved his humor, and I loved the Latka boys.
The locker room.
The locker
Yeah.
room. They were nice. I liked everybody. There really hasn't been a bad one. Some of them
Mhm.
have been more serious. I mean, speaking to the gynecologist,
Right. Dr. Fiss.
that was information for all people who have daughters and sons that need to listen to, and that was informative. And of course, I loved our bachelor,
Ben Higgins.
Ben Higgins, for his sensitivity and his wanting to give back to the community. So much of the last 18 months has been clouded by the pandemic and about COVID-19. It's ruined young people's lives, old people's lives. Families have been, unable to see each other, and of course, many people have passed on. So we have to try to be positive, and a little bit of what our show does is make you laugh a little, which is very important during this stressful time when hopefully we're getting to the end of something. I don't know what we're getting to the end of. But I think that's been a big service that we've done.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the mindsets we've brought on have been, more modern, more younger people. But then we also had Sherry Schneider come on, who published a book in 1995 called The Rules. And those rules were very old fashioned. So
they've worked. And they've worked. And she has clients that are using her today that find relationships that, end up in marriage, and that, people see is relevant in today's world as well as it was when she published the book. So that was great.
We had my other grandma on the podcast in the episode Excuse Both My Grandmas.
And she was terrific.
Yep, she really shared how you guys introduced my parents and what it's like to be a working woman from the 60s to now. That was an interesting perspective. We had on a divorce lawyer.
Right,
Nancy
which hopefully
Shemtop.
all of us don't need, but we know. But she was very relevant, and she gave a lot of good advice to young people, and especially older people who are single, who are getting into relationships. That's where a lot of these people are really very relevant.
And of course, we had a ton of relationship experts on. We had Logan Ury, who wrote the book How to Not Die Alone. And of course, we had Batsheva and Miriam Hart from My Unorthodox Life. That was a great episode, one of my favorites.
I can't wait for the second season to come. I'm really excited about that.
Okay, so I thought we could do a Rose Thorn Bud of 2021. So
Explain to the viewers what that is.
Rose would be the best moment of the year, Thorn, the worst, and Bud, what we're looking forward to in 2022.
Who made this up?
I don't know. It's just a thinking exercise. I don't know who created it.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so do you want to go first?
Well, I think the high of the year is that we all made it through with relatively good health, and that we're my two college-age children finished their first semester. You've been working full time, and my little one was able to go to school in person. So I think that was a high because it makes me feel sad when lives of younger people are so interrupted. I think the low of the year for me was, and really I didn't know anyone, but I just saw all the sadness that this virus has reaped on society, and that it has closed down so many small businesses, and people weren't able to make a living to sustain themselves because everybody had been shuttered in. So I think that was a low, and that was sad. And what I'm looking forward to in 2022, and this I can say with an exclamation point, is that this virus will no longer be deadly. We've all hopefully get vaccinated and been boosted, and that we can go about our life and think about this just like we would a common cold, that we might have to take some kind of shot every year, like the flu shot, and get a booster, and just forget about it. It'll just be a normal way of life for us all. And we can get back to the office, we can get back to theater, we can get back to restaurants, we can get back to our love lives with some kind of, calm.
That was all really nice. I did mean related to the podcast, our Rose Thorn Bud.
Well, if you're talking about the podcast, I really have no low because I've enjoyed every single one of them. The high has been working with you, so that's been fun, seeing you expand your knowledge of what this is all about, our forming a company, our branching out. I think that all has been like you're having an MBA course all rolled up in one. And what I'm looking forward to in the next year is more success for us. That would be, but that really is a secondary thing to hoping that everyone out who's listening to us stays well and is able to continue enjoying us.
Yeah, I mean, I guess mine would be pretty similar. I think Rose definitely spending time together and understanding each other more and each other's perspectives more. I especially realize this when people on social media reach out and say, your relationship reminds me of the one I had with my grandparents. I feel very lucky for that. Of course, it was also great to get recognition in the media from shows like Rachel Ray and Pix 11 and things like that. Thorn, I mean, I touched on this earlier, like, it's hard to start a brand. People ask you a lot of questions, especially in the beginning when you're figuring out how to be profitable and when you think a piece of content's going to hit and then it doesn't. So navigating that. And I think the bud is to make Excuse My Grandma a household name, become a larger content creation powerhouse, be a go-to source for dating and family and lifestyle content, and hopefully grow our community and work with more brands and become a business.
All right, Kim, those are all good things. We've got no negatives there. It's all going to happen, hopefully in 2022. And we've got so many guests coming on for the following year. I know you've got a whole lineup of wonderful people.
Yes.
So I think our audience will enjoy them. I know that we get more and more listeners, so that's a positive sign. I like that. And of course, the TikTok with us doing these silly makeup things, which people love. I can't believe anybody would be laughing or going along with us while we're getting made up in our bathroom. But you know what? It seems people enjoy it, and they might even learn something. I'm learning things that, my lighting is not good. That's what I'm really learning.
Yeah.
So, but it's been fun, and we hope that everybody has a happy and a healthy new year. We don't want anybody down and sad. If they are, please listen to our podcast and get a little chuckle.
Yeah.
Okay, Kim, you've got a bunch of questions that our viewers want answered, so let's start.
You guys wrote in on our TikTok, asked for questions, sent us some emails, so we're going to get to some of those right now. Grandma, I'm stuck between two men. One matches me the most. The other is promising a future. Please help.
Well, that's hard to really answer because I'm sure they're both wonderful choices. If it was me, I would do the one that matches me now. The future, I don't know what the future is going to hold. He could be wonderful, could be fabulous, but if I'm ready now to be in a relationship and the man next to me is the one that's sharing those same dreams, I would take the one that's next to me.
Okay, how much time should you give a man before he proposes to you? Should you date a guy who says he only wants to date casual?
Well, it depends where you are in your life. If you only want to date casually and he only wants to date casually, it's perfect. If
I guess
you're
these are two separate questions. How much time you should give a man before he proposes?
well, I think that's up to you. I think to me, a relationship only can go one way. If it goes down and then up, it's not a really good relationship. So you have to have stages. You have to begin, have a middle, and then a finale. So that's all. The time is up to the person. It could be 3 weeks, it could be 6 months, it could be a year, but there has to be an ending to be seen. If you can't see a foreseeable future together, why bother?
Well, you could see a future together and just be like, oh yeah, we're gonna be living together for 4 years and then I'll propose. But I think you would say that that's too
Well, that
long.
to me would be bogus.
So
I would
what's
never
your
do
number?
that. I would never do that.
What's your
I
number?
mean, to me, if you don't know somebody after you've been together at least a year and nothing is happening and you're of the right age. Now, we're not talking
Yeah.
about two people who are 20. They shouldn't be getting married or engaged. They're too young. They really, they can, if they're meant to be, then they'll have their careers and they'll still get together. But people in their 20s, mid to late 20s, after a year, if the relationship isn't going someplace, you know what? Move on.
Hot take. Okay. I'm dating this guy long distance. My birthday's coming and I want him to come spend time with me. He says he wants to, but hasn't confirmed. Advice.
Well, it's hard because, first of all, there's been COVID. Secondly, I don't know where they live, but they could live very far apart if they're a bi-coastal. It's very, very expensive to take flights back and forth to different cities. I don't think they're driving from one coast to another. But
Well, you don't know where they live.
I don't really
but-
know where they are. But you know what? I think it's a very hard thing to do, a long-distance relationship. I hope it works out. It usually doesn't because people just can't deal with the many problems that you have with that. But you know what? I don't really have any advice on this other than hang in there for a little bit. Maybe he can make it work.
I honestly feel like people can always make time to come see you. I think, as you're saying, the monetary thing, maybe like issues with work, not getting off, like that stuff gets in the way. But it shouldn't be him lacking confirming with you. It should be him being honest about the reasons it might not work and still wanting to come see you, but not just ghosting and not confirming whether he's going to visit. So I would actually confront him about it. At what point in the dating progression should I disclose that I don't believe in marriage?
Well, I think that should be possibly after a couple of you have to be in a relationship. I don't think you on a first or a second or a third or a fourth date say, I'm never getting married. But if somebody is dating and you're of age, we're not talking about early 20s. So we're talking about people who are mature and who have jobs. I think if you've been dating somebody for a while and now they're all of a sudden they want to go to another level, I think you have to come out and say, I have to tell you very truthfully, I am not looking for a long-term relationship.
I feel like letting it go on for months is horrible, though, because
But you don't know. I mean, you know what? It's a month is not such a long time unless you're going out 30 days in a row.
Yeah. Right.
You could go out 3 or 4 times in 1 month. That doesn't mean anything. But I think after a while of dating and the other person is getting serious, I think you have to let it be known that you're really not looking for a long-term relationship.
Well, they actually might be looking for a long-term relationship, just not the institution of marriage.
Well, that's up to them.
Yeah.
You know what? To me, that's I don't know what institution they're going for unless it's a crazy house.
Someone said, what is it called when you're not in a relationship and just going on dates?
It's just called dating. I mean, that's fine.
I see what they're saying. Like, sometimes if someone said, oh, how do you know this person? Or like, you're out with a group, I would be like, oh, we're dating.
No, people go out on dates that don't necessarily go into relationships. They're friends and they have a good time together. You know what? Not every person that you meet do you want to have, and you probably are not even having a physical relationship with them, and you're just going out.
Someone said, what should I do after a successful first date?
Hope that they call for a second date.
or call them.
No, you don't call.
No, this seems like it's a guy writing the question.
Oh, if you're a fellow and you had a good time with the girl, call her back. If you're a girl and you had a wonderful time, wait by the phone, but don't dare call him.
A little bit of a traditional response, but I think it works. So she wrote, "Help, I'm a 36-year-old and I've been dating my amazing boyfriend for nearly 3 years. Our anniversary is at the end of this month." Okay. "I've been married before and have 2 young children with my prior husband. My boyfriend and I have a great relationship and he treats me well. The only bump in our relationship is co-parenting the children. It's been very difficult for me to allow someone who's just my boyfriend to have a say in parenting my children, but he feels he can't take the next step, i.e. engagement and moving in, until he feels he has a say as a potential soon-to-be stepdad to my kids. Here's my dilemma. He brought marriage up very early on in our relationship, about 6 months in. He even took me to look at rings within a year of dating, so it made me feel like it would happen sooner than later. Each anniversary we celebrate, we get into a fight about it, and he reassures me it'll happen, but there's no need to rush. I need you and Gail's input. I'm considering ending things if he doesn't propose. I can't be strung along anymore, and my kids. Help me decide what to do, please. It's killing me. Desperate." She signed her name.
Well, Kim, first of all, she's saying two different things. She says to him she doesn't want him involved in helping co-parent her children. So if he's not going to help co-parent her children, why would she want to get engaged? So I think that in itself is an issue. I think she has to come to terms with really what she really wants. If he really is the man for her, then she should allow him to have say in how the children behave at home and how they are together. So after you've decided to figure out what your relationship with this gentleman is with your children, and if he is a wonderful influence in the house and he's a good person, then that sends a signal to him that you're ready. If he then doesn't pick up the signal, it's already been a couple of years. I think then you have to eventually just say to him, I don't know, did we miss the boat on this? Is it over for us? Or you were just waiting for me to say that I think you should have more participation in our lives. So I think you've sent out a couple of different messages and you got to figure out what the real message is.
So they said, "So I don't know how to respond to this, but me and my ex-boyfriend were dating for 9 months. He never seems to change his erratic behavior when he would screw up and hurt me over and over. And then when I told him it's time to break up, he doesn't seem bothered by it. And after inviting me out to go see a movie with him and hang out with him while we're still on break, he later admitted he's not sure if he wants to get back with me. I was very enraged and told him this is the biggest mistake he's making. And I do deeply love him, but I don't see the same from him. He hasn't tried to reach out to me. I've been there. Trust me. I'm just going to take this one. I feel that I know it's hard, and you might say, well, they've done this and this and this to show that they do care. You will live a much happier life if you are with someone who's 100% about you, not who's unsure. And you might be thinking about your ex even for a while. Sometimes you don't get over them at all, but I think you deserve someone who gives you 100%. Move forward unless he tells you he wants to be different. And grandma might say people don't change, but I still believe in change. So that's what I'll say there. Someone wrote, "I'm in medical school and in a relationship for 5 years. He said after med school he'll propose. Is it a red flag, or in my case, the exception?"
First of all, someone who's in medical school has to work very hard. It's a very tedious, long process of learning. If you've been with him for 5 years, hang in there. It'll eventually get there. And I think you should be very thankful that he's working to save the world, in which we need more doctors and more healthcare providers to help us through this pandemic. So good luck to him and good luck to you. Don't worry about it. There are no red flags. Just keep the faith.
So somebody asked, what are some good questions to bring up on a first or a second date to weed out the weaklings?
I think on a first and second date, I don't think anybody should weed anything out. I think you're still getting to know each other. You probably haven't even gotten past where you've gone to college or high school. So, you know what? Have a little patience. If the person is pleasant, enjoy the day, enjoy the evening. Think about all the wonderful things that are going to happen in the next year.
Another great episode of Excuse My Grandma, and the last of 2021.
I drink some bubbly.
We're so happy you've all been on this journey with us. And when you come up to us in person, people of literally every age, and tell us that you love listening or that you have issues with anything that we've said, we love all feedback. And we love to interact with you all. So we will see you in 2022.
Happy New Year.